What is up, everybody? We are back with another video. I'm just leaving my house now because my buddy Danny with the detail shop, who I featured in, I believe, 2 videos ago, maybe my last video, he asked me to come by and shoot 2 of the cars that he's working on, so we're gonna go do that right now. So that should be a pretty interesting video, because I will also kind of give you tips of how I work in the space I work with at his shop, which isn't a very large space. So this will kind of also be a tips video when working with tight spaces in photography, and kind of just some basic pointers in photography. If you guys haven't seen my very first video or my very first few videos, then this will be a good video to watch if you're interested in photography and kind of want to learn some tips or tricks when working with cars and working with, you know, businesses and tight spots and stuff. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys when I get there. So as you guys can see, we just got to his shop, so let's see what he's up to, and let's get this photo shoot on. Let's get it done. But this time he's working on an X5M competition. Absolutely beautiful car. And this is an RS6 that's in for some work. RS5. Oh, RS5, my bad guys, I'm dumb. And then this is the BMW that he worked on in my last video. Absolutely killed it, as always. So I'll check back with you guys in a little bit when we start getting this photo shoot done. Alright, so
I don't want to risk it.
we are taking the car to a spot right down the street, which is different than normal, because normally we just use his parking lot. So we're switching it up a little bit, but the spot's like right around the corner, so it works out. And then we're gonna position the car, kind of figure out how we want to do the shoot, and yeah, we'll go from there. It's a pretty cool spot. We shot Range Rover there the other day, but this car's beautiful. This color is insane. When you guys see it in the sunlight, it's jaw-dropping.
It's gonna be very nice.
Yeah,
Can't wait to see it in the sun.
me neither. I'm excited.
Replace battery. Okay. I don't know what that means, but maybe the car was.
So this is the spot. Like I said, it's right down the street from his shop, but this is different than normal because we got plenty of room to play with. Kind of can do whatever we want. Ain't that right?
Yes, actually, yes. Plenty of room here.
So this is the car in the sun. Absolutely crazy color, as you guys can see. Danny did a killer job with it. It's absolutely beautiful.
What an amazing color this is.
Yeah, it's
wow,
gorgeous.
Crazy shiny.
Very shiny. I don't know if you guys can see it through the camera, but there's like a blue sparkle in the paint.
Yeah.
That looks absolutely killer. Oh, I love this color.
Wow, dude. I'm amazed with the color, bro.
Me too. So I'm thinking we could position it the same way as last time. Like
okay.
Right against there.
Fair enough.
So I'm thinking maybe like have the front end facing this way.
Yeah, we want to try to get as much blue as possible.
That's what I'm saying. If you park it this way, it'll face the sun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just gonna do a little quick.
Yeah, do your thing. So yeah, guys, in a second you'll see kind of how I typically position cars. Since the sun is coming from behind me, you'll see there's a particular way I usually position the car so the sun beams onto the car the right way. And it's usually the best way to shoot a car in kind of semi-direct sunlight if you really want to make the paint pop. So yeah, give us a second and I'll see you in a second. So he's moving the car right now, and you'll see in just a second what I mean when I say I'll have it at an angle kind of so the sun hits it. Turn the wheel. Turn the wheel. So positioning the car like this really lets the sun hit that blue paint, and it'll really show off the work that Danny did, and it'll show off that blue paint. If you guys are curious, you can't really see my camera screen, but my settings for this shoot are 1/800th of a second, f4.0 with an ISO of 250. Actually, let me lower that ISO to 100. 100 ISO allows the pictures to be as least grainy as possible, which is what you want when you're shooting nice cars like this. Unless you're going for the grainy look, then bump up that ISO, but otherwise basically leave that ISO at 100 at all times. Another tip I can give you is always shoot with a circular polarizing filter, because that'll get rid of all the reflections of the sun, reflections off the window. And I can show you guys an example, because I could throw in an editing clip of how I edit this picture. So I'll do that, and then you guys can see the difference between a circular polarizing filter and a shot without one. So stay tuned for that clip, and I'm gonna get this shoot done, and I'll check back in with you guys when I go to edit. I promised this is the editing portion of this video, and I just wanted to start off by kind of showing you guys the difference between a circular polarizing filter and what a picture looks like without it. So here is the picture we're going to work with. And then I took this shot just to kind of show the drastic difference that a circular polarizer can make when you guys are shooting with cars. But yeah, so I'm going to kind of explain how I got a picture like this to a picture like this. It's not the same shot, but it's very similar. So the first thing you're going to want to do is straighten out your image and kind of just frame it up. So we're going to do that first. Just still not exactly straight. I like to have my cars straight, so sometimes I don't necessarily worry about the foreground or the background in this part, just because I want to get the car straight. But it depends on the location. Sometimes I prefer the spot where I'm shooting to be straight, whereas the car doesn't necessarily have to be straight, for example, like on a boat ramp or something like that. So this is the first step, and I don't think you guys saw me do this, but I changed it to a 4:5 / the 8:10 crop factor, because that is the crop factor that Instagram uses. So you take up as much of the Instagram real estate that you can to really show off the picture, instead of, you know, just having that tiny bit. You have like the rest of the Instagram screen to work with. So first thing I usually work with, well, you guys can see I have the presets on the left side of my screen. So I've created these presets all for different car situations, different cars and whatnot. But we're going to work through this rather than using the preset. Sometimes I'll just start with the preset that I've created and go from there. But the first thing is kind of to work with the white balances, which is what I like to do. Now you don't have to go in this order that I go in. It's just a personal preference of how you guys want to edit your pictures. But the first thing I do is usually add a little bit of little warmer colors just to make it look a little nicer. Whereas if you go towards the colder colors, it just doesn't look right for this shot. So I'll go a little warm with this shot. I don't really touch the tint. As far as exposure, you could bring that up a little bit, not too much because you don't want to go crazy with that. Contrast, I'll do just a little bit, maybe like a +10 on the contrast. Kind of see, when you're editing pictures like this, you kind of just gotta see how the picture comes along, and if you need to go back and make changes, you're able to do that. Highlights, I usually like to bring down the highlights a bit so you don't get so much glare. Whereas if I bring up the highlights, you see the bottom of the picture get really bright, which is not necessarily the look I'm going for with this shot. I want the car to stay nice and bright. The shadows, since there's a good amount of shadow right here, you kind of lose a little bit of details here in the grill area, the lower grill area. I'll bring the shadows up a little bit. And you can see that makes quite a bit of difference down here. The whites, I usually bring down just a little bit, not too crazy. Actually, maybe like -15 on that. For the shadows, I was up +51. That's just to really get the look I'm going for down here in the grill area. The blacks you can bring up a little bit, or I'll bring down the blacks a little bit. It gives a richer tone to it, whereas if I bring it up, it makes it look washed out. So bringing the blacks down, not that much, but actually start there. So bring the blacks down a little bit, give it a little richer tone rather than that washed out look. Texture, you could add a little bit. I never go too crazy, like a +8 on that. Clarity, right around the same. I'm at a +9 for the clarity. The dehaze, you could do what you want with. I usually don't add too much. Probably +10 right there. And then kind of throughout my editing process, I'll kind of see the before and after. Actually, a better one here would be the top bottom split. So you can see up here's the before, down here's the after. I just like to check throughout my process to see how the picture's coming along. Now, as far as vibrance, I like to bring the vibrance up just a little bit. So probably like a +15 on that. If I can get the cursor to work, there we go. Saturation, probably +10. You don't want to oversaturate the picture because this is what it looks like. Oversaturated just looks ridiculous. So just a little bit of saturation is all you need. And then from there, I usually go down to the tone curve, work with my tone curve a little bit. I don't do anything crazy with the tone curve. If you like that, it's not like the washed out look, but it's more like that Instagram-y filter type look. You just want to drag this dot right here up, and that's what'll give you that like Instagram-y feel to it. So actually, I think I'm just going to drag it this way a little bit, make that blue really nice. I only dragged it a very little bit, not too much. You don't need to overdo that. And then if you want to mess with it a little more, you can do what's called an S-curve, which kind of makes the picture look like that, but we're not going to do that because I don't really like that. So like I said, just bring it over to the right a little bit. Next, HSL color tab. As far as the saturation, I usually bring down the aquas a little bit, which will kind of help with the blue in the windshield. You don't want to bring, for a car that's blue, obviously, you don't want to bring down the blue itself too much. But the aqua, let's see, does it really make a difference? Yeah, so in the passenger side window, you can tell where the aqua makes a difference, or bringing down that aqua makes a difference. So bring that down. Let's see what happens when you bring down the blue. Yeah, so you lose the blue color sort of there. You lose it on the hood when you bring down the blue tab. So we're not going to do that. And then if you needed to, you can see in the brake pads here, it's very orange or like a yellowy orange. So you can bring down those if you want. So kind of see, it also brings down the yellow in the pavement. If I bring down the orange definitely gets rid of the orange that was on the caliper here. So I think I'll leave it like that. Color grading, I don't really ever play with the color grading. I've never really played with it, so you don't necessarily have to do that. Detail, I usually like to add sharpening. And if you, yeah, so I'll add the sharpening and then kind of bring up the radius a little bit, detail a little bit. And then to mask, when you click mask, you want to hit Option on your keyboard, and then it'll show you what's being sharpened. So one tip that I learned by watching other YouTube videos about editing is you want to mask it to the point where it's essentially just the body lines of the car, or as best as you can get. So that way it doesn't look over sharpened, but it doesn't look under sharpened either. I'll zoom in. You can see it doesn't look horribly over sharpened. Actually, I might bring down the sharpening just a little bit. There we go. That looks better than where it was. And then noise reduction. I'll usually bring up the noise reduction so it makes the image look smoother. And then you can see that the image looks nice and smooth while still looking sharp. And then lens corrections with Adobe Lightroom Classic, which is what I use. You can remove the chromatic aberration, which what that means is like in certain shots, there'll be color around where the sun hits the car. So that helps with that. And then enable profile corrections. That'll kind of help with the lens corrections. So you can see I used my Tamron 28 to 75 for this shot. So it automatically figures out what needs to be fixed and does that. And then transform, you don't really have to do anything. Effects, same thing, at least with cars. And then calibration, you don't really have to do much. And then let's look at this before and after. So this was the before, this was the after, guys. So you can see the car really pops nicely in the after. One little thing you can do if you want to make the image look a little better with all this dead space up here and the dead space down here, to draw your attention more to the car, you click over here, which is the graduated filter, and then you drag from the bottom up. And I'll usually drag to right about it touching the wheel of the car, or the tire of the car, I should say. And then you can bring down the exposure a little bit. This is kind of how I add the darker field to the bottom of my photos, so your eyes get drawn to the car rather than all that dead space. Bring down the highlights a little bit. Contrast, you can see what the contrast does here. Doesn't look good if you do the contrast. So you can stick with the exposure, decrease that a little bit more. And if you need to, I mean, that's just a rule of thumb with the tire, but if you think it'll look better if you drag it up a little further, then there's no harm in doing that. Which I think with this picture, I'll drag up a little bit. And then I'll probably add one more graduated filter at the top here to help with that dead space a little bit. Kind of the same thing. Maybe not that drastic, just a little bit of exposure down. And that's basically my editing process, guys. So yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like, subscribe button, comment down below, help me get to 100 subscribers, because as I've mentioned in my previous videos, I'll be doing a giveaway at 100 subscribers. So definitely help me reach that, and comment down below for other video ideas. And thanks for stopping by, guys.